Hi, everybody. I'm Pastor Mike, and I am so glad that you have joined us for the next episode of It's After Easter. Now what? You know, one of the things that we've tried to accomplish in this whole series is to take situations and life events and introduce them and share them with people so that they can see themselves in the stories and adapt from that, and then try to adapt that to their faith. And today, in the next two episodes, I guess, we are so blessed to have with us what I think will be an incredibly inspiring story. I am joined today by the Reverend Dr. Greg Neal. You'll remember him for when we talked about being scripturally healthy, and his husband, Cade Rogers, who most of you know from being the Director of Ministries here at Southside. Gentlemen, I thought that when we came today, one of the things that would be so powerful for people, something that they can take, and I've been blessed to know a little bit about your stories and just a small part of it. And there was a moment in each of your histories where you lived in the southern part of the United States, a little more conservative theological area. And there was a moment as events unfolded that you made a decision to come out.
Yeah.
And that's really where I want a little bit of a background about that, because each of your stories, while they intersect, are a little different. But I want to kind of go from that background and through a moment, because if I'm going to be honest, there are some things that you both experienced that it's beyond my imagination.
Okay.
And I think for me it's been inspiring to see how you've handled your faith through all of this. So, Greg, why don't you start and just give us a little bit of background about this? We'll start the inspirational story.
Well, after serving in ministry in the United Methodist Church for 3 decades, just about, almost, I'd come to the point in my life where I knew that I could not stay hidden in the closet any longer. I've been gay my entire life, at least as long as I can remember. And I engaged in ministry from within the closet that entire time. That was never easy. It was always difficult. It was a struggle. And I wanted to be true to myself, but I knew that if I was true to myself in the context where I was, it would be very difficult for me to continue in ministry due to the rules and regulations that the denomination had at that time. So I stayed in the closet and engaged in ministry from the closet, pastored churches throughout the North Texas Conference for 2.5 decades for sure. And it was a fruitful ministry. I enjoyed the time, but at the same time, there was something missing. There was a hole in my life because I wasn't being true to who God made me to be. I was not in relationship with anyone, and I felt God had called me to that, but that person didn't show up until I met him.
I'm so sorry.
And let me pause right here, because I think it's important for all of those that are watching to know that across the bottom of your screen, we've added a link to your website that you've just created. It's got some great podcasts. And that website and those podcasts really deal more with inclusivity.
Yes.
And how you're dealing with your faith. Is that right?
Yeah, so if you visit theinclusivefaith.com, there is so much more to this story, and we are still navigating the fallout of the things that occurred since meeting one another and navigating ministry in our inclusive faith. So we decided to start a podcast and tell our story and tell a story from our perspective.
Yeah, so I want to encourage all of you that are watching to head to their website, take a look at theinclusivefaith.com.
That's right.
And take a look at those videos, but let's pick that up from right there.
Okay. Well, really, the story now kind of footballs to Cade, because we met, we entered into a dating relationship. I remained in the closet. He was in the closet. And he was in the closet for multiple reasons, and not least of which is he's from Oklahoma. And that's just as conservative, if not more so than Texas. And he was also involved in an employment that was also rather conservative. Why don't you talk about that, Kate?
Yeah, so I was doing country music full time, and there are many places in the music industry where it is perfectly acceptable to come out and be your authentic self. And at the time, I did not feel like I could do that and still have this successful music career that I was pursuing. My mentor at the time had told me it was probably better if I stayed in the closet. He had no problem with it at all, but he just thought it would be easier for me to make a splash in the industry and not have that baggage over my head. So I was in the closet when I met Greg.
You know, that's interesting for both of you, how to navigate society in a easier, less confrontational way, not being true to yourself, but navigating society. This is what was required, or at least that's what you felt was required at the time.
Well, it was clearly required from the religious perspective from me,
Mm-hmm.
because the rule in the denomination said that I could not be active in ministry and be a self-avowed practicing homosexual. So I had to stay in the closet, and even beyond the particularity of that rule, there was simply a significant bias against gay people in ministry, especially in the South at that time, still today.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stayed in the closet as a matter of self-protection. Cade stayed in the closet because his profession as a country music professional, a singer, entertainer, really kind of called for it at that time and still today. So, well, we met, and we fell in love, and neither of us wanted to keep it just a boyfriend dating relationship. And so something had to change, and that meant that we had to come out, and then we had to get engaged, and then we needed to get married. I needed to get married for my own moral and religious standards, and to be in a intimate relationship, I needed to have that needed to be, that's because that's who I am. And I think that's also that the centrality of the importance of the commitment and the covenant was also important to Cade, but I don't want to speak for him on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, there became a moment where I felt that I was lying to people in my life and leading a double life. You go home and you're with your partner, and then you go out into the world and pretend you don't have one. It doesn't feel like an authentic way to follow Christ in the world, and really circumvented my ability to witness. So there just became a moment where it was no longer tenable for us to live two lives.
And you decide intentionally to make a decision, share this with people. I think it would be almost an understatement to say then all hell broke loose.
Yeah, yes.
That would be accurate.
Tell us a little bit about what happened.
You go first since you went in first.
Well, and let's talk about each of your individual stories, because yours is a little bit different circumstances than Greg's.
Yeah. So when I came out, I was expecting tomatoes and eggs thrown at me. I'm expecting
You're in a
the
church.
worst.
You're working in a church.
Yes, and I'm still wanting to do this music if I can, right? But I just made this decision that if no one wants to book me for a gig anymore, that's okay. That's fine. Because I need to be who I am. I could have all the money in the world, I could have all the fame in the world, and I would never be happy being inauthentic. And so when I did come out, it was not tomatoes and eggs thrown at me. It was really a lot of affirmation from the people in my life. And sure, my father had a really tough time dealing with it, and we've since mended our relationship. But I did not get the negativity or the hatred that then ensued until I was connected with Greg. So we did this in baby steps, right? But once the religious communities that we were a part of found out about it, that's when the proverbial hell broke loose.
Ah,
Yes, the reality was here we were still in the midst of the pandemic, and so Kate had gone to work for the church, helping churches be online and have live stream worship services so people could be connected during the pandemic and during the shutdown and immediately after that. So he was involved in the life of the church regularly in the technology end. And I'm in front of the camera. The pandemic turned us into televangelists. And doing that as well. Cade comes out, and he's fairly genuinely and generously received. There was some discomfiture from people, and there was some, especially in the music, from some of the music end, but it wasn't bad. Well, I knew it wasn't going to be that way for me, but I knew I had to come out if we were going to become engaged. So I came out. I came out officially to a district superintendent and therefore the bishop, and then I came out online publicly. And the reaction was almost immediately negative. The DS was supportive. The bishop, so long as we weren't married, was supportive. But the congregation and the community at large was not. And that was problematic. People I'd known for 20 years in ministry were, in some cases, extraordinarily hateful. And that was difficult to navigate. I knew I was hearing this ingrained, deeply seated bigotry for reason. The refusal to accept that one could be a Christian and be gay, that's bad enough. But be gay and be a pastor, the rejection there was significant.
Yeah.
And people who said, I've known you for 2 decades, I can't believe that you're gay. How could you possibly be gay and be a pastor?
And how could you do this to us?
Right. How could you do
Really?
this to us? And so that was part of the problem. I think some of them would have been okay had I, said I'm going to be remaining celibate or something like that. But then we announced our engagement in December 31st of 21. And that was made the initial negativity look like a joke. It was much worse when we announced our engagement.
so you said that you had this conversation with the institution,
Yes.
and then you also posted on it on social media.
Yeah.
And we know that social media is like the Wild West of things with no control over it. What was your experience a little bit like on social media?
Well, I posted about my identity coming out and received over 3,000 reactions, 2/3 positive, 1/3 definitely not, with hate in the chat, name calling, threats. It was pretty bad. And I anticipated it, but I probably didn't. The ones that hurt the most are the people who I'd known for a long time in ministry, who were just absolutely apoplectic with anger that I would come out as gay. Had I been secret about it and confided in them, they probably would have been okay. But because I came out,
Yeah.
they felt hurt. And then there were just some people out there who I didn't know who went absolutely berserk and were threatening our lives, our families, my mother.
All right, so people watching this that don't know are going to say, well, you say that. That's probably you're exaggerating, that's hyperbole, right?
I wish.
I wish.
Yeah.
And it still happens.
Really?
Yes, it still happens. When you get a anonymous letter in the mail with no return address that's been printed on a computer, and they've taken a picture from some movie of someone being shoved into a wood chipper, and then they say, this is going to be you, because can't be preachers. Well, wow. And that has happened as recently as, 5 months ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But that's that kind of thing was rampant at first, and it got worse and it got worse and it got worse. Then we got married on October the 1st, 22, and in the middle of the movement towards disaffiliation in the United Methodist Church, with churches in the North Texas Conference moving to leave the denomination. And I was told point blank, it'll either be 25 churches disaffiliating or 50, and you're the reason why it'll be 50, because you got married. And they were taking a picture from our engagement photograph. They took it, they put it on leaflets, and they said, if you don't want a gay pastor in your pulpit, you'll vote yes in favor of disaffiliation. And they shoved them under windshield wipers in the cars of the parking lot on churches the Sunday morning before they had their votes. And they were doing that, trying to get churches to disaffiliate, using us as sort of that poster child. And it was really hurtful. It was painful to see. And unfortunately, that then resulted in the institution, the conference in North Texas, saying, we have to take action and steps against you to keep it from being 50 churches disaffiliating rather than 25.
All this happened. You're successfully pastoring a church.
Mm-hmm.
None of those people said anything to you, though, right?
Not at first. In fact, initially, after we got married, I was suspended from ministry by the bishop. The church wrote a stellar letter in support of us and of me in the pastorate there, asking for me to be returned to full-time active duty ministry quickly, and the complaint to be resolved by placing it into an abeyance until the next general conference, when we all hoped things would change, and of course they did in 24. Unfortunately, less than a month later, the church turned around and asked for me to be removed. And we've always wondered why they made such an about face so very quickly. We have our suspicions, but we're not going to address those at this time. But that is what happened. So now, they were not cruel to our faces about it. In fact, they didn't say anything to us at all.
So for context on that, you can imagine getting married, and it's this happy moment in your life. And you go off for your honeymoon. And when we left for our honeymoon, before we got there, the news had gone out in the conference. We had broken the rules. A letter was sent out an email sent out to everybody in the conference, which is highly unusual. So we're thinking, well, we're going back to face the music, And the church that we just gotten married in, they turned their back on us. That's what it felt like.
Within a month.
Within 30 days. And you go from this high in your life to really this incredible low that I don't know that I can even effectively articulate within such a short period of time. And it feels like it's the two of us against this institution that is designed to really beat you down and figure out a way to snuff out your ministry. That's how it felt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So at this point, it's low. I mean, you have to feel like you've been dragged around.
Yes.
But you continue in ministry. Let's take a break right here. I want to come back in our next episode. I want to talk a little bit more about bring this into faith and how your faith then shaped the next steps of this.
Okay.
So if you are with us today, I've been joined by the Reverend Dr. Greg Neal, Senior Pastor at Grace United Methodist Church here in Des Moines, and Cade Rogers, his husband and Southside Church Director of Ministry, and so much more than that. He does quite a bit for us. Let me remind you again that at the bottom of the screen, we're going to include the link to their website, which is theinclusivefaith.com.
That's right.
And when you get a minute, go to the website, check out the podcast, check out the history. There's so much more to this story that we couldn't even cover in 2 episodes. And then when we get back, we're going to talk about faith and their journey just a little bit more. I've been so happy that you've joined us today, and we can't wait to see you next week. God bless you.